All right, Johnny boy. Here we go.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
Feeling good on the tube, but other podcasts coming out to you, recording this on a Thursday afternoon. Admittedly, while we watch some golf, but a lot of football to talk about today on the show. Hello to everybody out there in podcast land. It's good to be with you again.
Cheers. Cheers to everybody. What are you drinking there? A little iced tea? Arnold Palmer?
Yeah, it's a little. It's like a caffeinated. I mean, tea is naturally caffeinated, but it's like a little extra caffeinated tea.
Kombucha?
No, not a kombucha. A yerba mate. It's got a little carbonation, a little caffeine, but it tastes like a sweet tea, basically. Yeah.
Gotcha. I have to try that.
Yeah,
I've never even had kombucha.
Again, not a big kombucha guy. It's just this thing, the yerba mate, just a little more refreshing than like an afternoon coffee sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Are you a big bubbly water guy?
Yeah.
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 I'm not. I hate bubbly water, but I know a lot of bubbly water people.
If it's flavored, it's like a lemon lime or something.
What's the go-to cans that all the chicks drink now?
Yeah.
Yeah. You like that?
No, I'm not a big LaCroix. I don't have any LaCroix. The other one everyone likes is the Topo Chico or whatever it's called. The bottles of bubbly water.
What's the green bottle? The Pellegrinos?
Pellegrino? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they come to your table at the restaurant, you go.
Yeah. I just like
it
flat.
Tap still? Bubbly? I was like, well, how much? I don't want the whole bottle. Like, it was like $8 for the bottle. Always gave me when I was younger a lot of anxiety at a nice restaurant when they would ask that question. It's like, well, I mean, I want tap, but I don't want to say tap. But
yeah,
tap. Then you realize no one gives a shit.
Yeah, they don't care.
All right. How's your DraftKings team doing on a Thursday?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I got Phil, lefty. I got Bryson. And then I mean, Finau sucks. I did put an extra $100 into my bookie account last night because I had heard this week that this is Harold Varnell's home course and like get ready. Someone told me I was listening to this podcast, golf podcast. They're like, he's never played better. I'm like, I'll sprinkle a little. This is good nugget. And I looked today. It was like 4 over after 12 holes. I'm like, this is so stupid. None of this shit matters. This isn't pros. This isn't like football. They aren't home games. Like it doesn't fucking matter at all. There's such a waste of $100.
I think so much of I think a lot of times we look back at stuff and go, oh, that was obvious. Of course, like if Harold Varnell had played well here, we'd look back and go, duh, of course he did. Yeah, but it might have just been that he played well. Harold Varner's never played poorly on his home course.
I'm sure.
He's never had a bad round.
Yeah. Could it be added pressure? Right?
Yeah. Could be
buddies
whatever.
Are there. They're all watching you.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe he's got a tight abductor or something.
Do you remember like 3 or 4 years ago, they took the British Open to like a special course overseas that they had never played before, and it was where Rory grew up playing.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the most pressure ever, and his opening round was like 80.
That's right.
And he hit it out of bounds.
Was that the one Lowry won?
Yeah, and then the next round, Rory shot like 65 because he had nothing to lose and still missed the cut. But it was like that first round was devastating.
Yeah.
Like there could be a lot of pressure when, I mean, hell, anyone that just played normal golf, if just a couple people watching you don't know, you're like, hey, man, can you just turn around? Don't watch me here. Fuck, leave me alone. But, it is what it is.
All right, John. Podcast brought to you by American-Giant.com. Promo code HAM, by the way, 15% off. Holla at your boys there for first-time users. We appreciate that. netsuite.com/ham. Go check out netsuite.com/ham. Also, mailbag coming Friday. We'll do a mailbag on for the week. I shouldn't say Friday. The weekend. It'll be a YouTube stream. It'll be the weekend pod. Something fresh for Saturday morning. Get your reviews in on iTunes. Leave us a review on iTunes. In that review, leave a question. Any question you want, like who's going to sign Albert Pujols? John will have a full breakdown on his 5 top Albert Pujols destinations if someone wanted to ask that question. So, whatever.
If we had a race, me, you, Albert Pujols, 100-yard dash, who wins?
I mean, Albert hasn't been able to run in how long?
A long time.
He runs like when you get a cramp on the arch of your foot. I mean,
he runs on his heels. I've watched him run last night. It was just it's uncomfortable to watch.
It is. You think it's uncomfortable to watch? Imagine paying for it.
250 large.
Whew.
250 large. Disaster. Got cut. Now last year the deal. buyout. Cut.
Not buyout, just cut, and we're going to pay him the rest of his money.
Yeah, cut. No,
Albert, would you agree to a buyout? Yes, you can pay me all my money and I'll leave. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess buyout, like there's no negotiation there. He shows up to work. It's like, hey, you're gone. You're fired.
I do wonder, like, if it wasn't for that contract, would he have quit a long time ago? Because it's looked uncomfortable for a long time.
At minimum 5 years, it's looked uncomfortable.
Oh,
Like,
man.
Yeah, it was one of those, like, year 3 into year 10, it was a disaster. Sometimes you get to like year 6 and 10, you're like, oh, whatever. Got a little Gruden feel. It was like, whoa, this isn't going well. Raider hater? No, I mean, the Gruden deal has fucking been a disaster. We're not even to year 4 yet.
I forgot about the Martavis Bryant third-round pick trade the other day until I saw him make a catch in the Inside Football League or whatever the IFL is. I'm going to call it the Inside Football League. That's what it should be called. I think they call it indoor, but third-round pick, John.
What was the pick? The extra pick, remember, that they got for Rosen. And even at the time, we're like, how'd you only get a third-round pick from going 15-10 when you knew, it sounds crazy saying this, their franchise quarterback because they cut him a year later or traded him a year later. But at the time, like, if you're going to take a guy number 10 overall, you're pretty bullish on the player. I would have thought, like, third and a fourth, right? Bizarre deal.
Nobody won.
So I guess they've traded back one time. I give them a lot of shit for that was their first draft. They traded back. That was Reggie, not Mike.
That was Reggie. That's right. Yep. I mean,
Don't sleep on Reggie.
All right. You ready to dive in to a few things?
Yeah.
Any other announcements we have here?
I don't really have much.
Okay.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers watching.
Oh yeah, that's right. We should mention that. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
To my mom.
My mom too.
Who discovered the YouTube the other day. She told me. Nobody told me about your YouTube.
My mom has
she
been
said to me on
watching
the phone the other day.
My mom watches a ton of YouTube now because of like us. We just talk about YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
And it'll just
other things get suggested to her, you mean? Or?
Yeah. So she'll just be like, oh, I just watched this in-depth thing on so-and-so. I'm like, where? On TV? No, on YouTube. Because she has, an iPad that's like the size of an extra monitor. It's massive. We got it for Christmas a couple years ago. And you just sit there and just watch different stuff. I'm like, yeah, Mom, YouTube is kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal. It is definitely a big deal. For those of you who are listening to the pod, go check out our YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate that. If you're watching the live stream on YouTube, like this video. And if you're on the YouTube and you haven't checked out the podcast, that's always in the description. You can go check out the podcast. We appreciate all of that. All right, Middlecoff, let's start with our buddy. Let's go out to Matt Mayoko.
Yeah.
Like the old days. Who talked to Jed York. And, there's several quotes from Jed that have been going around from their conversation. And you can check out Matt's podcast and for that. But they're all in the same vein. And so here's what he said on 49ers Talk with Mayoko. We've talked about this internally. If we're in a situation where Jimmy goes out and takes us to the Super Bowl and again and has an MVP caliber season and does it again, there are worse dilemmas to be in, and Jimmy certainly has the ability to do that. In other words, I think the other thing he said that got a lot of attention was basically, hey, if Trey Lance has to sit for 2 years because Jimmy's playing really well, we're open to that possibility forcing itself upon us.
Okay, let's rewind to the first comment before we get into the could he sit or not. The first comment, when he just throws in the word MVP type season, I think we have to go back to when they made the Super Bowl, and it was an incredible season. They dominated their 2 playoff games. They walked into the Super Bowl. I mean, once they got to the playoffs, it was hard getting that number 1 seed, but once they arrived at the number 1 seed, they didn't sweat much, those 2 games. Really, there was a brief moment in the Vikings game where Diggs scored a touchdown. You're like, I don't know how they're going to cover that guy, and Jimmy threw a bad pick to Kendricks. But other than that, the rest of that game,
brief moment
at the Packers game, ass kicking. Jimmy was not only not an MVP, he wasn't even close to a Pro Bowler that year. I mean, he had moments during the season that were exceptional. His game against the Saints, awesome. His game against the Rams, and to me, probably his best game, given the pressure and what was on the line. And I think any 49er fan, or just, it's been a huge rivalry, with the Harbaugh-Pete Carroll days. That San Francisco-Seattle game was big. I'll never forget, because we were waiting to do a podcast, obviously, after the game, on the couch in the other room, pacing, thinking they're going to lose. right? I was like, they are going to lose. Seattle's driving the field, and they ended up making the Dan Bunn stop at the goal line. But Jimmy was, if I remember, it's crazy. I don't
I
remember.
love that you call it the Dan Bunn stop. You'd never heard of Dan Bunn's until that play.
Why? Because I can't. I'm trying to think of
Dre
who
Greenlaw?
was the linebacker that made the tackle. Yeah, Dre Greenlaw. But I don't remember what I had for dinner 3 nights ago. But Jimmy went 18 for 22 in that game. Like, it's just crazy the way my mind works. Like, he went 18 for 22 in a must-win game at Seattle when they had beat him earlier. But my point is, like, they went to the Super Bowl when their quarterback was, as a whole, for the entire season, slightly above average, right? Which in the NFL, that's
really good in
like
some
13,
key games.
14, 15. Yeah.
Right? Like, the New Orleans game was incredible in that game. Home field. Like,
But it was bad in other games where the
sure.
team carried him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. I think, to your point, that year, there was a point that year, I think, when I said I thought Jimmy was better than Deshaun. And it might have been wrong at the time. People disagreed with it at the time. Certainly now, in hindsight, it was very wrong. But I think part of what happened, and I'm not backtracking it. Part of what happened was Deshaun has continued to get better. Jimmy did not take another step early last year, partly because of injury, obviously. But before he got hurt, did not look like he was about to take a step. So for Jimmy Garoppolo to put himself in that position, that means that Jimmy Garoppolo, at age
27,
29, 30 in November.
I meant he was 27 in the good Niner year, 2 years ago. That's what I was.
That means that Jimmy this year will take another step, right? What does Kyle Shanahan say all the time? Well, really, when you look at it, he's only played one full season. True. But he's been in the league since 2014. So is he about to be better? At this point, I don't think anyone's expecting that. Now, if he's healthy, can he be really good? Can he be solid enough for them? Can he be better than Trey Lance early? Yes, all those things are true. But, like, to me, there's a scenario where this team has a really good year, Jimmy's really solid, and they still, like the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes year, and they still want to replace him. Like, I think,
yes.
Right? So, say that there. Like,
I think if you had the same year that he had in 2019, they probably wouldn't win as many games just because their team's not as good. But they would still win 10 or 11, but they probably wouldn't be 14-3, whatever, in 17 games. That they would still look to replace him. The same exact season the team had, which to me, that's the best case, Jimmy. Like, I don't think you can ask for anything more than what he gave you, right? I think he threw, 13 picks? He's just, like, he's never going to be one of those times you look up, you're like, oh, Jimmy's 4-pick season. Like, that ain't his deal.
Well, and again, you're probably not going to have that good of a complete team around him, right? Defensively in particular. Maybe you can actually be better on offense, but we'll get to that later. But defensively, you're going to need more from your quarterback. And John, they went to the Super Bowl. He had that year, and they still considered Tom Brady after that season.
Well, to me, the thing is if Jimmy were to have a great year this season, and again, great for him was just 2019, that means his value is somewhat back, and you have to move him. Like, part of the reason the Chiefs moved Alex, he was coming off his best season ever. They kind of sold high. I think they got a second-round pick for him. And remember, Washington paid him. But, like, you couldn't risk – the Niners are okay, I think, big picture, if Jimmy's just average and Trey kind of comes in at a point unknown in the season and just takes over, like some quarterbacks do. Baker did it. Deshaun Watson did it. Jared Goff did it. Like, not everyone starts week 1. Some guys start week 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, right, depending if the starter's shitty. Then his value was basically just getting you through some rough times, but you're ultimately going to cut him at the end of the season because no one's trading for a guy making $20 million next year, right? He's getting cut. Like, that, to me, that is the most realistic option right now. Is more if I had to bet, does he end up getting cut after this year or traded? I would lean cut just based on previous history. He gets injured a lot. His plays up and down. Now, if he plays well, 17 games would be an outlier situation for him. It's happened 1 year of his – hell, the 4 years or the 4 games he filled in for Brady, he got hurt in the second one. So you would just assume he's going to get injured. Them being able to trade him for an asset, to me, would be on the unlikely side. He had a little bit of juice this year, which I think was pretty clear teams were not going to give the Niners anywhere near. Now, they had a position of quote-unquote leverage, but if I told you the best offer they received for serious teams was like a 4th-rounder, would you believe that?
This past year?
Yeah. 5th?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they got offered a 4th-round pick.
Yeah,
Would
I don't
you
know.
offer
For a guy that's injured, $20 million? I mean, I wouldn't if I was a GM. I get why they asked it because they are now, they were cool with keeping him. But
he's more valuable to them than he is to other people. They've already invested in him, so he's more valuable to them than he is to somebody else.
But if he can't have the season that he had in 19, his value around the league goes up a little bit because when he started 16 games, he was better than half the league.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if and maybe this is not a fair comparison, if Jordan Love if they looked at him the way they looked at Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, then it would be an easy decision for the Packers if they thought Jordan Love was about ready to become a true franchise starting quarterback, right? Part of this is if Trey Lance is ready to roll, even after Jimmy Garoppolo has a great year, what's his great? Like, Aaron Rodgers' great was MVP, right? We have not seen anything near that level here from Garoppolo, even though he's clearly, when he's good, he's a top 18 NFL starter, top 15 NFL starter.
And like you said, the Niners value, Jimmy Garoppolo's value to the Niners, they've been around him now for 4 years. Like, in defense of the Packers, if LaFleur and Jerry Krause told you right now that, a.k.a. Gutekunst, was like, honestly, guy, we liked him coming out. We don't really have any clue what we have, right? We just had this kind of abbreviated season. We were trying to be an elite team. We just had to roll. We don't even know. The Niners go, we know what we have in Jimmy when he plays. Like, they do know, right? They're comfortable. Yeah. They've seen him every day for however many years.
Yeah.
And he's played a decent amount, right? He's a flawed player, but his play, I think sometimes, like, Jed, like, could he win an MVP? I don't even know. I mean, I get what Jed's trying to say. I just think sometimes, and I think Jimmy's a great example, once you're like 30 years old and you've had, I don't know, 3 elite coaches, Bill and Josh. And Josh, I don't know if he's a good head coach, but we know he's a great offensive coordinator. And Kyle is a great offensive coordinator. Like, it doesn't get his coaching for 8 years, because sometimes you get, like, when Steve Young came to Walsh, it's like, the USFL and the Bucs, it was a disaster. Well, this guy, the coaching doesn't get any. It's not like, he's had Freddie Kitchens, Singletary, and Shermer. Or just village idiots. That has not been the case.
Right.
Like, the chances that...
And talent around him.
Big time talent around. I would bet against a Rich Gannon renaissance from like 32 to 36. Like, he really figured it out when he was 33. Because what would Rich tell you? I got in the right spot. I had a coach that believed in me. I had young Gruden and Al, and we had a good team.
Right.
Jimmy's like had all these opportunities. Right. Now, maybe Jimmy would say, let's just hypothetically say he goes somewhere else. I would bet against this, but it is possible. From like 31 to 34, he just has a 3 or 4 year stretch where he never gets hurt. And like, he's the Washington football team's quarterback, or he's the Carolina Panthers, or whoever, put him on Team X. And he has 3 really, you just go, Jimmy Garoppolo's solid. But that to me is possible. But like, Jimmy's never making a Pro Bowl. I would bet against that.
Well, yeah.
Even though he could, in the perfect spot, if he stayed healthy, could like compete on the fringe of a Pro Bowl.
But I think 2019 was the perfect. Like, that was almost as. It's not as good as it gets.
And he was 27 and been in the league for 6 years.
Yeah, it was a really good situation with Kyle, with that defense. Now, part of it was there were a lot of games where you didn't have to do a ton more, right? They were running the ball at a very high level. They were number 1 or number 2 in the league in defense, depending on when in the season.
But I think, hasn't he kind of proven, like, you eventually got to just say, and I know you do, but he is what he is. And this is where I think the other teams would be like, well, Kyle, my team's not as good as yours. I'm going to need a guy to have like a month where he's throwing it 45 times a game, and I don't think he can do that. And the coach or GM would be right. Like, that he doesn't have that in the bag, right?
Right. I don't think so.
Because I think his fatal flaw, and this is what ultimately is why Jimmy just would have capped the Niners a little big picture, I just think he is going to turn the ball over, right? I mean, I think he's a guy that's just probably going to throw some
sometimes
picks.
Because of arm, sometimes because of decision making. Yeah, I think one thing we've seen as time has gone on
I'd call him a little bit of a reckless player.
Yeah,
at times.
Exactly. One thing we've seen as time has gone on, right, is he's not a flawless decision maker, right? I guess no one's flawless, but for somebody who's not plus arm, plus athleticism, sometimes he needs to make better decisions.
I think Derek Carr is a good example of a guy I think was kind of there at a similar point, 3 or 4 years ago, and he just went to the point where you can call him a little too conservative at times, but you feel pretty good about like that game he had against Atlanta or whatever, where like his big turnover games now feel more like outliers than,
I'll tell you this, John. I want to get back to Jed here, but if the Packers traded Aaron Rodgers to the Raiders, I'd be pretty bullish on Derek Carr's season for 2021 if he were the Packers quarterback.
Yeah.
That team's good. That offense, that coach.
One thing in sports, and I think Twitter's a good example of this, like, this didn't age well. Well, if I said it yesterday, I get it. But if you're pulling something that I said 2 years ago, we're talking about players. And they either get worse or they get better. So, like, you can have an opinion. Like, 2 years ago, I thought Jimmy Garoppolo I would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Derek Carr. 2 years later, I wouldn't even hesitate to take Derek Carr. Like, things change. And I think everyone – and you saw the Niners changed. They pivoted. They're like, yeah, we can't do this anymore. You get more information. Players, you have to look at them like stocks. They're either going up or they're going down. You know, the famous saying in the league is like nobody stays the same. You only got two options. You get better or you get worse. There is no middle ground. And I think the first time you hear something like that, you're like, that's kind of cheesy. The more and more you watch sports, like especially you and I do it for a living and have for a long period of time, but like really focus on like specific individuals, it really is true. You know, and I think older players get to a point where they've always gotten better and then their body gives out. But certain players, like they just get to a point where they just, for whatever reason, I don't know, because it's hard as shit, can't get any better.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, their flaws are their flaws.
Sometimes it's not flaws, it's just physical limitations, injuries, circumstance, situation, whatever. As it relates to Jed, look, Jed does not talk a lot. He did his draft day tweeting. This is owners talk from time to time. He does not talk much, particularly the last few years. To me, this is not an unreasonable. This is a take the pressure off the young guy. If you're going to talk, you're going to get asked about this, and if you're going to answer the question, it's a perfectly reasonable answer to give. If Trey Lance is not the starting quarterback for 2 more years, then I would be stunned. The possibility for that to happen, to me, would be far more about Trey Lance than it is about Jimmy Garoppolo, about him not becoming what they think he can become, than it is about Jimmy Garoppolo becoming, a superstar quarterback in the NFL, and then you'd have a separate problem on your hand.
My educated guess is when they went through the different scenarios, not only when they made the trade, but when they were telling Jed and they decided on Trey, whether they got on a whiteboard, whether they're sitting there at a conference table, they just have 3 or 4 different options, right? Hell, maybe he just gets to training camp and this guy's so good he starts day 1. Jimmy gets hurt and he's thrust in a random week. Best case, he's not ready and Jimmy's healthy and playing well. We're in no rush. We have him under contract for 2 more years. I just think Jed's probably reiterating what his general manager and head coach, just kind of the way he explained I think it's pretty. He easily could have said, if Jimmy goes down like he often does, Trey's got to be ready. But he wouldn't say that because that's a polarizing topic. Do you think they had that conversation?
And it's not the place for the owner to say that.
But don't you think they had that conversation? Like, we got to get him ready because if he's our
backup,
like
what happens if Jimmy gets hurt week 1? Is Trey going to be ready to try and win games? And it's just when you're the owner, you get to ask questions like a fan too. Like, guys, so you like him, but how good do you really think he is? That's what I would ask. Yeah. Like, Kyle, how good do you think he really is? Like, could he play right now?
You think he'd be a meddler?
As an owner?
Yeah.
Hell yes.
I wouldn't meddle at all.
Oh, I would be
think about
Jeffrey
football.
Lurie on steroids. Absolutely. All right, I've been watching some tape, guys. I watched some YouTube cut-ups. It's only highlights, but I'm pretty sure we want to take this guy in the first round.
I've never watched less tape since I've gotten into this business. I would watch dramatically less than I already did. I'd be in Cabo. I'd be everywhere.
I'm being a little sarcastic, but like I'd be in the draft room. Like that would be the fun of it.
Oh yeah, I'd be in the draft room.
And I would say like, Coach, what do you think about this guy? Huh? It's a pretty good player. And he'd say, no, I don't like this guy. And then after like 3 years of understanding what he thinks, then I'd start having opinions. Yeah.
Well, you'd go to a draft meeting.
I'd be like David Sampson. I'd have my own YouTube channel. Like I was just in the draft room, and here's what Kyle and I disagree on.
You'd go to a draft meeting, and by the time like they got to the 3rd round, you'd be asleep in the back.
Oh.
Like, this is boring.
3rd round.
I'm just talking when they're going through the meeting.
2nd round, I'd be like, so we like the running back from Ohio State? And they're like, no, actually, we like the guard from Western Michigan. I'd be like, oh, okay. We're gonna watch an hour of his tape now.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later. You guys want me to pick you up any sandwiches? I'll have them delivered because I'm super rich.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I just saw Jimmy. I'm gonna go see what he's up to. I'm gonna go check in on the quarterbacks.
I'm going to go to the spa down in the building I own, this one.
I'm gonna go to the golf course. Everyone there is gonna ask me what's going on in the draft room. I just want to have some answers for those guys. I want to have some insight, some takes. I want to let them know, like, oh, we got some red flags on that guy. I don't know. I'd be careful. Be a good time. I know that. It'd be a good time. All right, John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about American-Giant.com. Use the promo code HAM. You're a first-time buyer at American-Giant.com for your classic zip hoodie, the flagship, American-made. The cotton's American-made. The zippers are American-made. From beginning to end, from out of thin air to finished product on your body, it's American-made, and it's very high quality. Last for ages and ages and years and years. The T-shirts, we got them. Men, women, whatever. Whatever you're looking for, American-Giant.com. Promo code HAM.
Yep, American-Giant.com, promo code HAM, 15% off for first-time users. I have T-shirts. You have T-shirts. We both have the hoodies. Can't recommend them enough. The hoodies are thick. They're going to last long. They're American-made. We're big on America, the red, white, and blue. 50 states. Been here my whole life. Most of our companies, hell, we got into the merchandise business. We went overseas. Not American-Giant.com. That's not what they do, guy. They keep it in America. It goes North Carolina. They keep it in the American workforce.
Come on and raise up.
For you. American-Giant.com.
Take your shirt off, twist around your head, shake it like a helicopter. We have the product. A lot of people. I just got a DM from actually a guy named John who just bought a 3-pack of T-shirts. It's great stuff. Like John said, the American Giant classic full zip hoodie. I know you got some sweatpants too. Promo code HAM, and send us tag us on Instagram or DM us your order. We always appreciate knowing that you're supporting. So thank you.
I saw a funny meme yesterday. It went something like someone went up to Ricky Henderson and asked him what he thought of John 3:16. He said, I don't know John, but if he's hitting 3:16, Ricky's hitting 3:30, so he ain't as good a player as me.
That was a good line. He says the story about John Olerud is not true.
What was the story?
Well, that he got
the hat.
Yeah, like John Olerud was a first baseman who always wore a helmet. And Ricky gets to first base, and he's like, hey, man, I used to play with a guy who wore a helmet on the field. And John Olerud was like, yeah, that was me. But the story is too good to not
Wasn't there another story on Ricky that he had $1 million check in his locker or something like that? Am I thinking that correctly? Have you ever heard that one?
Doesn't sound familiar. I know I'd heard.
Oh, no, what he did was he framed the $1 million check. And like, Ricky, that's like your money.
It's real money.
Yeah.
Didn't cash it. I remember hearing when I was doing minor league baseball from a guy who was a scout for the Cleveland Indians who used to tell me stories about young Manny Ramirez. One time, Manny flipped the keys to like the clubby to go get his car washed, and or maybe he didn't flip. Maybe he told the guy the keys are in the glove box, and the guy opens the glove box and just game checks come pouring out. Like he would just throw his game check. Wasn't cashing game checks. Yeah. A lot of money.
Manny made a lot of cash.
Manny.
I loved Manny Ramirez.
Is he still playing? Is he still playing abroad?
Manny could hit. We just need Manny Ramirez's kid on the Blue Jays because they got like every guy I grew up on's kid.
I know. Kevin Biggio. That's a fun team to watch. Anyway. All right. Aaron Rodgers, John. I mean, we follow this story every day. Every day it feels like there is another former teammate of Aaron's who's just like doing a radio interview, or a current teammate of Aaron's that's doing a radio interview. His teammates clearly.
He's had a lot of prominent teammates that are just even random guys like AJ Hawks, Arnold McAfee.
John Kuhn did an interview, right?
Yeah. The guy? I mean, what's his name? Jones from San Jose State.
Former Raider?
Jerry Jones. Jason Jones.
No.
What the fuck's his name?
I can picture his face.
I know. Well, he's. You know who I'm talking about.
I do. But, the comments will catch us up in a second.
Jason Jones?
No.
Jimmy Jones?
Not Chandler. James?
Chandler Jones? James Jones. He's on NFL Network. Randall Cobb feels like he's always around. People like Jordy Nelson. He's got very just likable. Like, he had a pretty good run of, I don't know, just people that, like, everyone in the league likes, players and people. He's had a pretty good guy.
So the latest for Aaron Rodgers is that he still hates everybody, and he looks at the GM like he's Jerry Krause, which is not a compliment. And I was saying this to somebody the other day, and as someone who has worked for a boss that you don't like there's just, you don't believe in, there's a point in time where it doesn't matter what they say to you, they can't win you back. And
what about when they call you 5 years after you're done working for them, like you want to do business anymore? Do you pick up their phone calls?
Some people do, some people don't, John. It's a personal decision. But with Aaron, like you and I were talking, what if Gutekunst calls him and is like, hey, let's mend these fences? If he looks at him like Jerry Krause, then he's not into mending fences. And if that's the case, he'd probably rather not play for him than rather not play for anybody than play for him. One way or the other, this is good news for probably ultimately the NFC and good news for the 49ers, the way this is
Do you
going.
think it's so hard to tell because it really has only been on the forefront now for less than a week. I guess about a week. Yeah, a week.
It's the 1 week anniversary on Thursday.
Do you envision him in a Packer as a quarterback this year?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that's hard about it. It's hard to take this story seriously because
there's clearly enough smoke where the fire's burning. He hates these people.
Yeah, and with hindsight, we see like all the stuff that was smoke right after the season ended, the week before their last playoff game, that was kind of downplayed when he went on with McAfee. All that stuff was real too. But
did he say it after they lost to Tampa? Like, I don't even know. Like, he kind of hinted at it the moment they lost.
I think the beautiful mystery thing, was that not before that game? Or was that after that game?
I thought that was after when he talked with Pat. I thought that after the Bucs game, he threw a curveball and people were like, damn, he's still talking like that? And it was weird.
Yeah, the beautiful mystery thing was just like on a press conference Zoom.
Yeah, that could have been just a regular late season game, playoff game.
I think that was before the Bucs game. I think
you're probably right,
but it was around the last couple. And then he said after the game they didn't, the decision to kick the field goal, all that stuff. There was criticism there. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it's hard for me to not picture him on the Packers, but it's clearly a real enough story that if he's back on the Packers, like, I don't think this is just about getting the most money out of the Packers. If this was just about contract negotiation, would you be gaslighting your own GM like this?
No, I think he is.
Somebody said it was post-game that.
It does feel a little bit like it's got a legitimate chance to not happen. Like, when I say not happen, like him to never play a Packer game again. Like, he can make it so ugly if he doesn't show up because the Packers brass has enough, I would say, the outside understanding to go like, listen, guys, this guy's never going to show back up. Like Khalil Mack's thing was he was holding out for more money. You traded him not because he was never going to show up, because you were never going to pay him the $90 million. It was just that simple. Like, He knew his worth. Whether you didn't have the money, whether you didn't want to pay him, regardless, if you would have paid him the $90 million, he would have been a Raider. So I'm with you. But I do know this, and I don't even know why I did it. I was bored, and I had a couple edibles. Started arguing with people on Twitter. Like, Aaron's had it pretty good in Green Bay. When you look at historically, like they do everything to win anything Brady needed. No, they actually didn't. Brady's best wide receiver in his championship years, you could argue his best wide receiver is either Troy Brown or Julian Edelman. He never won. People are like, what about Randy Moss? And they didn't win a championship. Aaron's had a great offensive lines, star wide receivers. They never drafted one in the first round. Well, yeah, they were just hitting second and third round pick fucking grand slam.
Yeah, Bill did, and he missed on all of them.
But I'm saying the Packers.
No, I know.
Jordy, Devontae, Randall Cobb, like these guys were great players they drafted in the second and third round. That if he does leave the NFC, because I don't think the Packers could trade him in the NFC, because they would be able to get enough or equivalent draft compensation from AFC teams. It is a massive win. Like, the powerhouse, even if Derek Carr were to get traded there, I would view them as a wild card team more than some like 13, 14, 15 win powerhouse. The Bucs had to go there and win. I would say Seattle, San Francisco, and LA would all be like, okay, this thing's opened up, and the NFC East doesn't really have a powerhouse team. Like, to me, if he's on the team and he's in good spirits, you could argue like them and Tampa are just legit. It's between those two teams. And now one of the teams, whoever the best team out of the NFC West, could make hay with those two teams. But I think those would be the clear favorites, right? Coming into the season.
Yeah.
Like, they're bringing everyone. They re-signed Aaron Jones. They're good. I mean, they just went there. They hosted the – Tom had to beat them there. Now, you could say that Tampa won't be a wild card this year, right? Drew Brees is gone. They'll win that division. Maybe they're the 1 seed. That's believable. But if Aaron was happy, I'd be like, it wouldn't shock me again if he had to go through Green Bay.
Well,
and that goes for the Niners too. The one time the Niners had struggled beating them, they beat him easily with Kyle. They beat them easy. The one time they came out to Candlestick when Colin ran over them. The second year, remember, when they went there in the freezing cold, was it Sam Shields or whoever the corner was, if he catches the ball, the Niners lose that game. It's hard to win there.
It's hard to win there, John. Even if you're the 1 seed, it's hard. First of all, Matt LaFleur is like a college coach right now. He's 26-6. Like, that's
with a playoff win.
In terms of first 2 years in the NFL, like 26-6 is pretty crazy.
I think McVay had a similar start.
But I mean, that's like these are. But even if they're not 13-3, I think
Kyle's like 6-25.
What was Harbaugh's first two?
I mean, 12, 13. Yeah, it was high.
So last year's 13-3 Packers team was different than the 13-3 Packers team that the Niners beat the year before. And you and I talked about that in 2019, that we'd watch the Packers. They did not really look like a 13-3 team to us. We'd been watching them all year. And you and I talked about it all last year, that the Packers looked much better than the years before version. That was a different team last year. And I think you told me you were reading Bob McGinn. They think around that organization that they can be like last year's team or better than last year's team again this year. And I thought last year's team was like, I think as they say in the movie Anchorman, the tits. Like, they were the tits. They were really good.
I think most people thought, especially once Kansas City's tackles went down, when it got to the Final Four, I did, but I think it was kind of consensus that Packers felt like the team to beat of the four, right? Like, once we got to the Final Four, it was like Rodgers in the peak of his powers. They got to win a game in Lambeau. Go. I picked them to win it all, and they didn't. I mean,
yeah,
but I think Aaron's comeback is like a huge reason of our dominance is me. And he's not wrong, but it's like, well, yeah, Aaron, that's the sport.
But obviously, but it's like, yeah, dude, yes, but we're paying you a lot of money. Thank God you're worth it. You elevate the players around you. We also have to make this. We got to make the defense better. We got to spend money other places.
Well, here's the thing, guy. I think it behooves Tampa, the Niners, Seattle, L.A., the Bears, Minnesota. I would be leaking fake shit. I would make this. I would like it. The league, especially the NFC, the Broncos, the Raiders, any team that wants to trade for them. There are going to be a lot of people circling to try to fuck the Packers now. And this is where I do think we did a video yesterday about them. You know, the Niners. Who knows? Maybe they're going to turn them in, see if they can penalize them. The Packers kind of have their back against the wall, and everyone's circling. Rodgers, all the other teams, obviously all the NFC teams want this thing to end. It's kind of them against the league. I mean, the teams that matter, right? The two teams that want to trade for them, and then all the sweet NFC teams and the teams in their division want this thing to get worse.
Right.
That is kind of a shitty position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Bears,
well, unless like you said, you did. I saw Schefter say today. He claimed that his tweet because he really kind of, the dude from Minnesota did something. No one really believed him, and then Schefter said tangible stuff there. It did not come from Rodgers' camp, that it had been an accumulation of things. And I think that's fair. Like, over a couple of years, if he's calling him Jerry Krause, there might be things to Aaron, whether it's with Murphy, whether it's Gutekunst. It doesn't feel like it's with LaFleur as much. Like, they've kind of on the same page. Unless you read something.
Well, I think Tyler Dunn said something. Tyler Dunn's supposed to have a piece out Friday about Jordan Love, which, we'll see. How good is Jordan Love? But somebody wrote, like, the relationship with LaFleur is not bad, but it's also it's not great. It just kind of is, So
it's not like Peyton Reese or Mahomes.
No, the impression being Matt LaFleur is not, their relationship is not one that LaFleur, because Aaron trusts him so much, can somehow save the situation, right? Like, that's kind of the insinuation there.
Yeah, so to me, it just starts, the more and more people you got throwing matches on the fire and gasoline on the fire, and just it's going to be hard for the Pack. If the Packers are able to fend this off, one, they just remain a powerhouse in the NFL, and it's pretty impressive because it feels like the avalanche is coming on them.
Yeah, it's like Rodgers.
Like you got close to hearing the last of the Jerry Krause type stories. Like, I feel it's going to be just keep coming.
No,
the cat's out of the bag.
Also, if you're Aaron, part of the motivation here is you have to force them to do something they don't want to do, and you don't have the power to make them do. So part of this is about emotion. Like, let me make it so that they hate me so much they don't want me around anymore, right? To me, that's part of why the Krause thing comes out. Like, well, who would share that information? People who are tight with Aaron. Would they share that information? Aaron holds grudges like no one else in the history of mankind, so his friends are just going to start sharing his text messages? No. He can easily go to the phone. Who did I send that to? So, no. Like, it helps him if that's out. It helps him if the Packers feel like there's a point of no return. He is insulting us. He is insulting me. Like, that helps him. So, yeah. It's
been a crazy offseason for quarterbacks.
I know. The Deshaun thing, it's like Russ, Deshaun, Rodgers. We're 0 for 2 on guys getting traded at this point.
It worked for Stafford.
You're right. Stafford didn't do any of this stuff. Stafford just
no. Remember, the
played
story
pretty
was
straight.
the day after the season ended, he went to the owner. The day Dan Campbell was hired, they all met. Like, you could say this. I'm not saying it would. Obviously, I think Aaron knows that they would never. If I went, barring peace, that's not going to work because they'll just try to give me peace back. Like, hey, we got to broker peace. Stafford approached it, but he dramatically different than the other three. He didn't leak a thing. He approached it professionally, and they did take care of him. Now, they were also in a complete blow-up, so it's not they're not.
They didn't think they had a Super Bowl team.
But there is something to be said about, like, handling your business like the NBA players isn't always going to work, especially in the NFL. Now, Rodgers might tell you, like, one, I don't give a shit what they think about me, which he clearly doesn't, and two, this is my only option. Same with Watson to go nuclear.
Yeah.
Because Russell didn't totally go nuclear. He leaked a little, and then Pete was like, "Be nicer," and then they were like, "We'll do some stuff," and then everyone's like, "Kumbaya." And it's like,
part of it
Sierra,
was like, what was Russ's end game? Was Russ's end game get me out of here, or just will you guys listen to me?
Yeah.
How much power? I
could see a story leaking like he wanted Carson back. He had identified Gabe Jackson. He had 3 guys in the draft. They drafted 2 of the 3 of them. He's very happy.
Russ's big board sits next to the other big boards. It's stapled to the wall. Like, Russ, what scouting system are you using? Oh, I've got this guy as a 5-star on the Russ scouting system. I've got him as 5 Russes. I gave him 5 Russes.
A player big board beside their alma mater is closer to an owner big board. I watched that Ohio State game, that wide receiver suite. Like, yeah, no shit, we saw him too. Are you fucking watching Western Michigan and North Dakota State?
This guy DM'd me. He says he's ready to roll as soon as we want him. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Niners for a second because this came up a little bit. And after the draft, there's all discussions about positions of need and what do the 49ers have to have, and is wide receiver a problem for them? Is depth at wide receiver a problem for them? I was asked about this the other day, and I started thinking about it and diving into it. And I think the answer to that question is no. I think they need to find 13% of their production, and I get that number because I use percentages here, John, as I went through a bunch of guys. That's Kendrick Bourne's production. That's what they need to find. And I think people look at it and go, well, what have you really added here? Is Richie James your slot receiver? You didn't really draft anybody at that position. Where's your production going to come from? And to me, it's going to come from one place, and it's pretty clear-cut and simple. It's going to come from George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel being healthy. If those 3 guys are healthy, they've got enough. That's it. To me, that's the solution. If George Kittle's healthy, he's going to catch 26% of your passes. It's like, this year it's a little more because it's 17 games, but I'll use 16 games as a measuring stick. That's 85. That's 85 to 90 balls. And you go, it seems like a lot. It does seem like a lot. But that's what Travis Kelce does. Travis Kelce last year caught 26% of the passes in Kansas City's offense. That was 105 balls. We're not even talking about that. But healthy George, that's what he gives you. Then I went conservative, John, on Ayuk and said if you give Ayuk 75 catches in a 16-game season, you'll need more this year, but that's 20% of your receptions. Ayuk had 60 in 12 games last year, so that's conservative. If you give Deebo 60 catches, okay, Deebo had 57 in 2019, so I think you could argue that's conservative. The 3 of those guys right there, that's basically 19%, 25%, 20%. That's 65% of your production. Okay, you still got a lot to make up.
Yeah, patchwork the rest with running backs and backup receivers.
Kyle Juszczyk, he gives you 20 catches. We've seen it the last 2 years. Mostert, last 2 years, he's going to give you 18 catches. I'll give Trey Sermon 15. I'll give Richie James 20. I'll give Ross Dwelly 15. I'll give Wayne Gallman 15. These are just based on what these guys have done historically. Again, these numbers are 16-game numbers. So if we start going into percentages, what you need after I've done all of that, you need about 22% more. Okay? You're looking for about 22% more. But I didn't list all the other running backs, random here and there and whatever. And again, I think you need more from Ayuk and Debo. But I think there's enough there, provided their best. But guess what happened when the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl the last 2 years? You know what happened? Travis Kelce played in all the games. And Patrick Mahomes played in all the games. And last year...
And Tyreek played in every game that mattered.
Let me give you the percentage. Yeah. Let me give you the percentages last year on Kansas City's offense. Travis Kelce caught 26% of the passes. Tyreek Hill caught 21% of the passes. DeMarcus Robinson caught 11% of the balls. Mecole Hardman caught 10%. Sammy Watkins caught 9%. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire caught 9%. Well, I think the Niners' third best receiver is better than the Chiefs' third best receiver last year.
Who? Hardman?
Yeah, Hardman.
Sammy?
Yeah, Sammy
was
Hardman,
hurt a lot.
Robinson, just one of those three guys. Like, I think you can get more production from either Ayuk or Debo. I'm calling Kittle your number one.
I think the one good thing is when you have an elite offensive coordinator, that those guys, Richie James, Juszczyk, if you got a Dwelly that plays a little bit, your running backs, you scheme those guys in the first half. In the second half, and I'm not saying you don't scheme plays for Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle, but like a lot of other guys, Juszczyk included, are a little more scheme dependent. You know, to have like a 3 or 4 catch game, they're going to have a couple plays called for them, which I'd say vivid memories of Kyle Juszczyk's big plays with the Niners clearly are plays for him, right? Something that they see built into a game plan. Your elite players, and this goes back to Kelce and Hill, they have an elite offensive coordinator too. But over the course of a season, over the course of games, some of those aren't just scheme dependent. It's just Travis Kelce kicking your ass.
Right.
So to me, in the second half of games, when the game plan goes out the window a little bit and you're just adjusting to each other, that's where, to me, the health of your top three guys. If Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo can play 90% of the games or whatever, because that's what you need if you're going to make a run, you have elite. Those guys are talented to make plays. And that's where Kyle comes in on the other to get those guys their percentages to make up the difference. Because we know, like, Kittle can get you 5 catches in the fourth quarter against the top team in the league, right? I think Ayuk, I saw some clips yesterday, like, he's a really talented player. And we just know Debo's good. The key for Debo, stay healthy.
Right.
Stay healthy. The other guys, like Richie James, going to need some help, right? I mean, he's just but when I say help, I mean help to get open, like play for him.
Yeah, well, great. He's the fourth passing option on most plays.
100%. Same with Dwelly, same with Juszczyk. And then you just naturally get some layup throws on NFL standards. I mean, if me or you were back there and someone was chasing us, it would be hard. Screen passes, wheel routes to running backs that when you can run the ball. And that's the thing, like, it's crazy how offenses, everything's very fickle. It's like up, things change, it goes down. Then it doesn't feel like this offense is going away. I mean, it's been a staple in the league for – it's not like this is new. I mean, Mike Shanahan's been running this, versions of this since Elway.
Yeah, people have been arguing about whether or not, whether or not his running backs were actually great running backs his whole time in Denver.
Well, because it had like that 5-year stretch of like every year was a new 1,000-yard guy. It works in the running scheme specifically. Ultimately, I can scheme runs consistently easier than I can passes, because like I can scheme a pass, but if you have Jalen Ramsey and you're just scheming a play for Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Ramsey's on Brandon Ayuk, no matter the scheme, like it's going to be hard to get away from that guy, where they're double teaming him or whatever. Like good defense can just – there's the reason Julio catches so many balls is not because of scheme. It's because physically he's great. He runs good routes. All the top wide – Devontae Adams. And that's where the Niners – they've invested a lot there, guy. I mean – Kittle, they didn't quote-unquote invest a lot in originally, but he became a great player, and they've paid him. I think is he technically the highest paid tight end in the league?
I don't know. Jonnu Smith hasn't passed him? Didn't pass him?
Oh, yeah. It's skewed. And the Zennies make him. But the 2 wide receivers, one's a first-round guy and one's an early second-round guy. Like, they've invested a lot in their passing game, right?
Yeah.
And now Trey Lance and Trent Williams, like, there are Like their passing game does need to be better when you factor in their investments. Jimmy, they paid a lot. Now they got Trey Lance. They got Trent Williams. They signed Mack. They signed a bunch of offensive linemen. They have multiple wide receivers, Kittle. Like they have more than enough.
And remember, a couple of years ago, they traded for Emmanuel Sanders. Like they've good players have mattered to them in the passing offense, and they've got at the top end really good players.
I think a good example is like Devontae or Tyreek Hill or whatever. Those guys in a vacuum are better than Ayuk or Debo, obviously. But you could go like, who's Devontae's number 2 wide receiver? Really, with Sammy always being injured, who has truly been the Chiefs' number 2 wide receiver? I'm not talking tight end. I'm talking their number 2 wide receiver. It's kind of a mismatch of Pringle, of Hardeman. Like, they're solid. But I'd say Debo and Ayuk in their own, even if they both become top flight, neither guy ever becomes like a top 10 wide receiver. That's fine. If they're both like big-time twos, you got Kittle, and a running back game, that's more than enough.
I think we've seen enough to know if they're healthy, they'll produce. Right now, that's the big if. But that's my point. The if with them is, are they going to be healthy? Not, is there enough here? Like, there's enough here.
Yeah.
By the way, just for reference, the percentages I came up with were just based on, in 2019, the Niners completed 330 passes. Last year, 370, playing from behind, throwing the ball more. But not as good offensive talent, quarterback play. So I just split the difference. So I just 350. That's where all those percentages are coming from. But basically, what you're looking for is another 25 catches. That's what they're looking for, based off the numbers I gave you. Well, okay, if I'm conservative on Ayuk, like, do you think 85 is too much for Kittle in a 16-game season, a quarter of your catches?
No. You pay him to do that.
You're right.
And I think over 80 for one of Debo or Ayuk is more than realistic. It's a fair ask.
Well, if they're healthy, it's almost an automatic, right? Ayuk caught 60 balls in 12 games last year as a rookie with different quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think it's a fair ask to get Ayuk between the 80 to 90 mark.
Now,
and Debo,
if he's on the
it's a
field
harder ask with Debo. He gets hurt a lot. They got to find a way to keep those
little push pass that counts.
Those glutes fresh.
Yeah, I know. And last year's kind of weird because it's like, okay, if Ayuk and Kittle, all these guys are playing together, right? Ayuk's playing with Jordan Reed one day, Dwelly.
That'd be something if I was just a stubborn like a Zimmer. You know how the competition committee every year just gets like random things like we want single digit numbers. Like you can't even think of like the future things. One thing I would ask, the push pass no longer a pass. I want that to count for your run numbers.
I could not. Look, here's the thing. You can keep. I agree. Short answer. It drives me nuts. Folks. It is not reflective. It does not reflect what a pass is supposed to reflect. Now, if you want to make it still an incomplete pass, that's fine with me. I'm not saying change the rule. I'm not saying make it a fumble. I'm just saying let's make a little judgment call here, folks. This is not a pass.
And again, you'd have to do a deep dive on the numbers. It would take an analytic guy to. I could text actually the Chiefs the numbers guy. That I bet the guy that's benefited the most the last 3 years would be Mahomes. They do that because they got the fastest guys. It's boom and he just takes off. They got like 3 or 4 of them. I mean, it's not just Hill. So, but like no one says like Mahomes. He's not really cooking the books because you watch him play. You're like it feels normal, but
sure.
I would venture to guess the last 3
how many
years,
yards?
500 yards just from that little
Something.
play. I mean, they run it every game.
Yep. And again, the numbers we're talking about here, the raw numbers you have to adjust for 17 games. The percentages. That's what's relevant because you need George Kittle to catch a quarter of the passes. That's what you need George Kittle to do.
Totally.
And Ayuk and Debo combined, probably you need more than 40%. But I think part of this is we think they're capable of it. So, as we talk about it in the offseason, that's.
I think that I'm going to end on this. The hardest part about projecting players, it's easy to look back and go, just think of a guy like Kelsey and go, God, he's put these 5 or 6 historic years together. But there was a point in time you go, if this guy can just stay healthy and do it, he's got all the talent. Kind of the way we talk about Kittle. But until you do it and just bang off, you don't have to bang off like 10 years, but just like 3 or 4, you go, okay, it's hard to do that. A lot of guys in the league, for every guy that we call a quote unquote a bust, I think there are a lot of guys that turn out to be just good. You're like, God, we want this guy on our team. You might even extend him. And then they just battle injuries or they just can't stay on the field. That to me is a decent segment of the NFL population that we do end up talking a lot about because they're players on all these teams that on the Niners, who they're playing. But that is a large percentage. Just Like Debo might have an 8-9 year career, but it's just like, God, he just was never able to shake these hamstring injuries.
Yeah, I don't think we're out of the. I don't think we're just sure yet.
And
I know what he is when he's healthy.
The difference is like Kittle and Kelsey. Kelsey's just more a little like wide receiver. Like he'll hit the ground, like he'll run over little guys, but he's not trying to like knock people out 24/7. George, there's a balance, and it's hard because you don't like one of his defining characteristics is trucking guys, but it's like, the reason Frank Gore played for 20 years is like, when's the last time Frank tried to run someone over? He just hits the ground. There's a balance to staying healthy. That's where I would probably bet on that guy to be pretty consistent. Like his style, speed, getting open, hitting the ground, like he'll jump out of bounds.
Well, the thing you worry about with a guy like him is just like muscle pulls, right?
Hamstring pulls.
But again, Debo's had that. I worry more about contact injuries with Debo. And I love the way he plays.
That's what I worry about most with George is just, I feel just because the Chiefs have been such a powerhouse brand, even if you don't watch every second of every Chiefs game, you feel like you watch like 80% of their season. I don't feel like I ever see Travis Kelce take like crazy wallop shots wouldn't you say it feels like minimum once every other game, George has taken a violent collision, sometimes self-inflicted.
Yeah, but he's applying it, but you still feel it.
It counts. Like,
yeah, you still feel it. Okay, before we get on to some other stuff, John, let's tell the people about NetSuite. NetSuite.com/ham. NetSuite.com/ham. Time to graduate from QuickBooks. Don't run your business on QuickBooks. You're running in quicksand. The bigger your company grows, the faster you sync with outdated software that just can't keep up.
Guy, NetSuite helps you automate your key business processes and close your books in a fraction of the time. Everyone's doing it right now, tax season, trying to find money here, find money there. You get with NetSuite, kick QuickBooks to the side. It's all in one place. Think days, not weeks. In fact, 93% of surveyed organizations increased visibility, guy, and control over their business since making the switch from QuickBooks to NetSuite. How do you beat that? Oracle, you ever heard of them?
Yep.
They're doing pretty good.
I had a feeling you would go there. NetSuite,
right now,
Oracle.
NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program only for those ready to graduate from QuickBooks.
Head to netsuite.com/ham. Special financing for you graduates at netsuite.com/ham. That's netsuite.com/ham. You don't have time to spend dealing with manual processes, like John said, multiple delays, multiple systems. You're busy watching YouTubes, okay? Yeah. Scrambling around, listening to podcasts. Time to get on solid ground. netsuite.com/ham. That's netsuite.com/ham. Oh, I thought you were going to say do it. I was going to try and say it at the same time.
I was pulled up the golf, seeing where my guy Bryson is.
DraftKings live update. I'm in second place now somehow. You know how? Keith Mitchell, John,
is in first place.
T1.
I'm scrolling, guy. I don't see DeChambeau anywhere.
I'll just go to
He's
your team.
one over.
I can tell you, Bryson's one over through 15. I mean, well, you got Phil though. Phil's keeping you in the mix. Yeah, we're watching golf, everybody. Mickelson on the tee. Anyway. All right. What else? Were you going PGL or Ohtani here?
Well, just because I watched last night, I mean, I've seen all of his highlights hitting. I remember his rookie year.
Shohei Ohtani.
He like legged out a double, and I remember thinking like, Jesus Christ, this guy can fly. And then he stands up. You go, well, this guy's not like built like Ichiro. This guy's 6'5". We just had the draft. And I talked to a buddy the other day. He's like, the thing with the draft pick, and a lot of GMs have been talking over the last week, it's just you want to check every box, right? He's big. He's fast. He produced. He's a good guy. He tested well. Like every step along the way, I can't imagine these guys diving in when he was coming over from Japan just going, oh, my God, this guy's 6'5". He throws fucking 98, and he's got nasty breaking stuff. Like, how about he's a hitter too? Yeah, he's got legit power. He can fly. I mean, guy, he's a 5-tool. He's got to be one of the most talented baseball players. I didn't play baseball in high school. You didn't either, did you?
Cut after the JV team.
I would say a lot of.
Dan Ariola came up to me as I was mowing the infield. It's like, let me talk to you.
if you're gonna go to play college baseball,
Time to become a broadcaster.
or get drafted or whatever. I mean, it happens.
Davis High was good in my defense.
Yeah,
Good team.
Won multiple, state titles, section titles.
championships.
The best players, even if they go on to LSU or UCLA or get drafted high, typically pitch and play offense, right? It's probably pretty normal. Every once in a while, you're probably more locked in college baseball than me, but I feel like I find out about the elite guys. You hear about it once in a while. Babe Ruth, like who has ever done it? I'm not talking in
Ricky
a blowout. But he quit doing one thing and went to do the other thing. I'm saying at the same time, I'm the ace pitcher on a staff, and because we have the best player in baseball, I'm the second best player on our own team hitting by a mile. It's pretty crazy.
Even in college baseball, it doesn't happen a ton.
Would you say it probably happens less these last couple decades than maybe it happened 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah. It doesn't happen a ton. John Lynch, I'm pretty sure, did both.
Pitch and played outfield.
I think. Yeah.
I bet it was pretty prevalent with the elite guys in the 90s, would be my guess, or 80s.
It's definitely more specialized now. Yeah. It takes more time, I think, to be elite. There's just so much more.
Part of my point is I'm watching him. If he's like, I have to pick one, I don't even know which one you'd pick.
There's always been that debate. Is like the problem for him has just been he hasn't been completely healthy as a pitcher, right?
Good Tommy John.
And he hasn't been completely healthy as a hitter. Like, he was the rookie of the year when I remember watching a piece about him on 60 Minutes before he came over, and it was just watching the clips of him as like whatever he was at the time, 20 or 21, 22. It's just like, oh my God. Like, this guy's swing is gorgeous. As a pitcher, he's gorgeous. I mean, he's
fucking huge.
He's incredible.
Left hand, he's just so
smooth at everything.
I had the thought last night. It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen.
Yeah, the question is, can he put it all together this year? Because I'm just looking. He's only made before this year. He made 10 starts in 18. He made 2 starts last year. This year's been really good. He's made 4 starts this year.
He has 9 home runs.
And he's hitting. Yeah,
he's a remarkable talent.
And he's been hitting. Like he had 40 home runs his first 2 years in the league.
One thought I had last night.
But also, John, here's the other thing. Now he is right in his physical prime. Like, he's 26 years old now. So this is the time.
He has to be one of the most talented athletes to ever play American pro sports. Baseball, basketball, football. Like, what he can encompass, right? Do it all. It's like part of what made Michael Jordan the greatest player ever. He was the best defensive player ever when he wanted to be. Like, there's never been a better perimeter defender when he cared. He was unstoppable. Like, he could just turn into Scottie Pippen when he wanted to do it. And he did it for a long period of time as he got older. Like, in basketball, it's unique because you play offense and defense. In football, like, I heard Tom Brady on Howard Stern. He's like, they were replaying the interview from last year, remember, when he signed with Tampa and he went on Howard Stern. It's not like they weren't talking about sex, but it was really good just Tom being personal with Howard and him saying, Howard, because Howard kept asking him, like, Tom, you're so famous. Why do you how are you so nice to all your teammates? He's like, well, Howard, in this sport, you don't realize. And he's like, I don't realize because I'm not a big sports guy. He's like, I could not play another position in high school. At me right now, 42-year-old Tom Brady. I could not go to a good high school team and be a guard. I would get pulled over. I could not be a wide receiver. I can't run. He's like, I can only do one thing. And in football, I would say the difference, the most important position are quarterback, but like Odell Beckham could play DB. Like, there are guys that could play different positions, but you just don't in football. Like Deion, that's why I remember when Deion would get sent on passing routes, it was kind of crazy, and they would just like run go routes. Otani's kind of like a Deion. I mean, Deion probably is one of the most remarkable athletes in the history of the world when you think about it, right? One of the best football players ever, was really a good baseball player.
Bo Jackson.
I just say Deion did a lot longer than Bo.
Yeah.
My only.
No, I'm not. Absolutely.
Bo's probably, pound for pound, most talented. But this is the breath Otani's in, but he's like better. I just think it's more unique being able to pitch and hit. Like, that's unheard. It does not happen ever at that level, which they say, like, the one thing even if you're not a huge baseball fan, if you watch the game of baseball, you're like, God, this looks pretty hard. It's very difficult.
Think about how hard it is. He doesn't hit in the games that he pitches. Because if you told me you had a guy that does both, you'd be like, great, he can hit when he pitches, fantastic. It's like, no, actually he doesn't. And he is well worth the trouble. And when I say trouble, I just mean the balancing of trying to figure out how do we do both with him. Like maybe we got to give him a day off. He can't hit the next day, whatever. But he's still I still think there's a question about can he really do. He hasn't really sustained it yet. But if he can, you're right. It's already one of the most remarkable things. If he can actually sustain it, he had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings.
I'd be fascinated to know how big he is in Japan. Obviously, he's big, but is he
I would guess
just like Michael Jordan already?
Extraordinarily massive, considering that the contract that he signed. I don't think he didn't really go out of his way to make 7 teams bid against each other. I think he's making. No,
remember he told
$3 million.
The Yankees, he told the Yankees no. Told Seattle. Remember he told the Giants no. I'm not even meeting with you. He's kind of low key. I watch him and
he's extremely low key.
I kind of like this guy's vibe, guy.
Oh, I love him.
Do you notice watching the Masters? Hideki kind of has just a low is there some Ichiro? There's just something in the Japanese culture.
I think Ichiro's a little more. I think Ichiro's a lot more uptight in terms of just Ichiro feels like a Saban. Ichiro, I think I don't know totally. Ichiro, I know was basically built like a machine. Ichiro doesn't know it. Ichiro, I saw this clip. I think it was this spring or maybe. Ichiro went to spring training just to hit with the Mariners.
Yeah.
First AB. Ichiro hasn't been in a real batter's box in years.
Yeah.
Pops out in his first AB and is the manager came over, Scott Service, was hey man, it's all good. You haven't swung a bat in forever. You'll get him next time. Ichiro's mad at himself. Ichiro, would take a bat to his home. Remember that long story about Ichiro? And I think he has a strained relationship with his dad because his dad was so hard on him as a coach, and Ichiro would always have his bat in the hotel room practicing his swing. Ichiro.
Yeah.
Ichiro. Yeah, I'm not saying these guys. I don't.
You're saying Ichiro's closer to Earl Woods meets Tiger Woods than Ohtani.
Yeah, Ichiro. Yeah,
kind of chilling.
Yeah. Ichiro, I think, has a very uptight vibe. Ohtani feels like a lot more just fun.
Ohtani feels like a quarterback from Los Angeles, just kind of there kicking ass.
Even though I'm sure it didn't, Ohtani feels like a guy it came easy to, right?
Well, yeah. Fuck, you watch him. It's it comes pretty easy.
I remember watching Ichiro take BP one time, and it was just ridiculous. Remember the story where he didn't hit home runs in games, but he hit them in batting practice with ease.
Well, he could with ease. It's why would I? I'm just peppering the ball all over the field.
By the way, on the YouTube stream, someone posted Babe Ruth's numbers from 1916. That's what we're talking about. It's over 100 years ago, and even Babe stopped pitching.
This is a pretty good comment too. Babe Ruth used to be a starter. Different era though. Oh yeah, we know. Yeah, little different era.
It trains. They were, but
little different era.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other guys, but in any event.
Yeah.
All right, the PGL. This thing is fascinating. The professional golf league. Oh, somebody said Mad Bum would have been like Adam Dunn. Mad Bum. Yeah, and he hit two. Mad Bum this year. There was a story coming into this year this is going to be your last chance to hit. We think National League pitchers. Can Madison Bumgarner get to a 200 average? Before pitchers don't get to hit anymore. I don't know. I haven't seen what he's been doing this year, but
you want to get above Billy Mendoza's line. Whoever said that line, I heard him interview in the last year or two. Was it George Brett? I think made the comment, but he wasn't even trying to be a dick, and that's how that line materialized. Or Brett claimed that it was him, that he had used it in jest in an interview.
Talking about a guy.
Yeah, or when he was really young, he said it. And yeah, the PGL, for those that didn't see, I put it on Instagram just because the story broke earlier this week. And it's been an elephant in the room in golf for a couple years that a little bit like the Champions League, which was basically one European dude and 7 Americans trying to just, corner the market on all the cash. The Saudis have an unlimited amount of money, and they have some tournaments on the European tour where a lot of Americans go because they give appearance fees, where in America they do not give appearance fees. So even when Tiger in his prime, the PGA Tour never paid him to show up, which you could argue was kind of dumb. They should have, but they just never wanted to make a set precedent. The one thing about golf that really doesn't parallel basketball or baseball or even soccer, right? I mean, the league somewhat has similarities to soccer, but like Messi gets his salary. So like Messi knows like this year I'm going to make 50 million. Or even F1 that probably has some parallels with golf. Lewis is getting paid whether he's winning or not, at least that year or that 2-year contract, whatever his contract is. In golf, they make their big money from sponsorships, but if you have a terrible 6-month stretch where you just miss a bunch of cuts and never get top 20s, like you don't make a lot of money on the course, right? You have to perform to get paid. A little like an NFL 5th round, 6th round, 7th round pick. Like you got to perform or you will not get on the team. And the Saudis have an unlimited amount of money. They basically want to create the Ultra PGA Tour. Cut out, 150 guys and just have the top like 40, 50 and pay the top 10 or 12 to be team captains. A little bit like an F1 team, except instead of 2 guys, you would have 4, I think. Yeah. And basically, I hire Phil. I give him $40 million. We run a draft with like the other 10 captains, and we pick a team of 40, and you play all over the world. And I guarantee, not even the guys on the team, like a Tony Finau's on one of these guys' team. Like let's say he's on a Ricky Fowler's team. Finau's getting a salary, so he doesn't have to worry. Like he has a bad week, he's still getting paid. And the advertising, right? I mean, they make.
Well, I saw somebody said the PGA needs its sponsors to step up. It's like, do you think the sponsors are mad that they're about to go, that they would go worldwide with this operation? No.
Well, they would just pivot with them. I was thinking
Nike
about
wouldn't
this last
be pissed
night.
about this.
No, in any other industry, not with sports, the PGL would not only happen, it would have already happened, right? Because in any other business like the one you're in, or I mean, we're in together, you're like the people listening, you would just, if someone offers you 5, 10x, whatever you're doing, why do people sell companies they start from scratch, right? You and I don't want to sell this, but if someone said, hey, we'll give you $20 million for the next 5 years, like, you're going to have the rights to Abraham Middlecoff. Like everyone, that happens all over the world. You read all the time about this. You see the Action Network sold for a couple $100 million. Like people sell their companies all the time. But in sports, like the one thing it has, in football 30 years ago, right, the USFL with Trump and all those guys, they kind of got a little traction because they did have money. And they signed Reggie White, Jim Kelly, Steve Young. Like they were
back
on
when
the
you
right
could
path.
compete with the NFL financially.
Yeah, and they were on the right path. And they signed the right guys. Herschel Walker, like you just list the names, you're like, God, they whoever was doing their scouting was nails. The problem is just the history of sports, and I think it was soccer, you saw it with the freak out, and definitely with golf. These guys already make a lot. So like if I'm making $20, $30 million a year, if you're going to make it more stressful in my life to go from 30 to 60, it's like, well, I don't even care.
The travel is an obstacle. Now, I think the international stardom is not that these guys aren't stars internationally already, but I think it could go to another level, right? Like I was listening to, I heard something, Bob Odenkirk, the actor from Better Call Saul, he plays in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
He said he just came out with a new
I love
action movie. I can't wait. Have you seen the previews for his action movie called Nobody?
But he's serious in the action movie.
Yeah,
right?
it's like real. But
it's gonna be hard to take him seriously in that role.
He trained for 2 years to like do all the fighting, and he said it just comes from this place of like he had a home break-in like in his home, like when he and his family were home like 10 years ago, and he always wondered like, should I have done something else?
What did he do?
I think he just like tried to calm the situation down, which ultimately he's like is the right thing to do. Like, what if I had tried to create some sort of battle? Like, would that have been good for my family? Probably not.
Was the guy pointing a gun at him?
He didn't really get into the details. Seemed actually like it was a pretty traumatizing experience for him and his family because he didn't really want to totally get into it. But one of the things he said was that a few years ago, a buddy of his was like in China and sent him a photo of on television, Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. One of the two was on. And he's like, the thing, it's huge internationally. He's like, well, he started thinking like, well, what is better? What movie can be international to capitalize on kind of the stardom from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad? The best international movies are action, like fight movies, John Wick, right? Things where it doesn't matter the dialogue if something's lost in translation. Like those are the best movies.
Why Schwarzenegger became such a worldwide star, right?
Schwarzenegger, like think of like just a Jason Statham movie, like those movies, any John Wick movie. All the
Bournes.
all the Cars, Vin Diesel.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, there's like 20 of those, right? There's for a reason. He's like, let's make an international, like let's do one of those. Like to me, there is so much more out there. If you can, there's a reason the NFL tries to play games in London because like the rest of the world is out there beyond our borders. There's a lot more money to make.
Yeah.
I mean, soccer's doing pretty well, and they're barely in America relative to how long they've been huge in other parts of the country. So I get it. And the other challenge, right, if you're the PGA, unlike, say, the NFL, where your richest guys own the teams and collectively own the league, not really great for the players because, they can collectively keep your salaries down. It sounds like the Saudis look at this thing the way some owners look at their teams. Steve Ballmer, where it's just, I am not doing this because I want to get richer. I'm doing this because it's sweet. And I'll make money, but not every decision I make is about the bottom line. I just want it to be sweet. Like, that's really hard to compete with.
It would be sweet, though. I think it would work.
What times would I? That's the only, like, could I watch it? Would
it be
like soccer?
I think they would still play a lot in America. I think the name recognition, I think it would be massive. I just don't. This is where the golf is lucky. They're at the financial point. Now, I think the reason it's so big financially is why the Saudis want in, right? The reason soccer now is so big, it's such a big billion-dollar business, is why they want to do the Super League. Like, if it wasn't making any money, this wouldn't be an idea, right? It's like, so part of the idea is like you're going to have to get rich guys to pivot. It's where the NFL is safe. Obviously, football works, right? It's why everyone tries to do these off-season leagues. The problem is it's like part of what sports are is it's just a great reality television show, right? And the NFL is dwarfed the other sports. Baseball and basketball can't hold a fucking candle because we talk about the coaches, now the GMs are famous. Obviously, the players have always been famous, the owners. We have all these characters. Every team minimum has like 5 to 50, depending on how good your team is, 15 characters, including coaches, GMs, owner, players that we're interested in their lives. They're just a 24/7, 365 character. And it sucks. Like, I bet some of these guys, like, it wears me out. But they get paid for it. They get paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
And there's no way you could match the league's money. And the AAF, and I think the XFL and all these secondary leagues have realized, like, we're not even going to try to be them. If we could just, kind of draft off 15, 20%, hell, 8%, and just make 3 or 4%, we'll be making huge cash. And I think I give the XFL credit because when Corona hit, it's like, I think they kind of try to get the NFL, the practice squad guys, they realize what their niche could be. Where with soccer and golf, they're still trying to it'd be like me and you starting a league and trying to get like Beckham, Ramsey, Mahomes. Like, it's a challenge because those guys, even if I can offer them more money than they're getting paid because I have the Saudis backing me, I have to convince them to change their life, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy, Ricky are amazing.
Did you say this already? Remember when DJ played in Saudi Arabia and then had to withdraw from, was it Pebble?
Yeah, it was like the Florida tournament. It was Pebble.
I thought it was out here. Yeah, it was Pebble. Because he was like,
it was Pebble.
I'm worn out. But I don't know if I was watching did you watch any of the Kentucky Derby? Or not any of it?
I didn't.
You either watch it or you don't. It's 2.5 minutes. But
yeah, I don't. Well, you can watch. I mean, it's on 15 hours that day.
Yeah. Right. I just meant the race. Bob Baffert won again. It's like his 7th Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, shocker.
But the horse wins. And apparently the story is like the horse was bought at auction for like $1,000 or $7,000, right? It's like one of the greatest ROIs on a horse ever. So they interviewed
like a secretariat. That's cool.
And so they interviewed. They're like, the owner, Amir Zidane is here, and I'm like, okay, who's Amir Zidane, right? Like, do a little Googling. Oh, he's the head of the Zidane Group. Just what I expected. I expected to Google him and not get any information about what the Zidane Group does. You do a little more Googling. Oh, it's basically a Saudi oil company, I think. Like, that's who just won the Kentucky Derby. Like, they're just all in on. Did he do it because he needed to win the whatever $1.8 million or whatever you get for winning the Kentucky Derby? No, that's not why he did it. Did it because it's sweet. It's because it's fun. That's why he did it. Right?
But when you get to season 3 of F1, this random new rich guy, super arrogant, he's like a younger Jerry Jones meets Bob Kraft, just bought a team. And you know who his driver became? His son.
Oh yeah, that
He's just
happens.
like a
Wait.
huge-
I think that happens in season 1, and then 2, and then 3. He jumps from one team to another team.
Yeah, so it's like, well,
Williams.
the owner
He was on
came
Williams,
in
the
new.
team that only had 7 points after season 1.
So it's just these are rich people's playground, right?
Yeah.
It's like some rich guys like to get into politics when they're bored. Other rich guys like to get into whatever sport they're really passionate about, right? And I do think you can become more passionate about something, right? As you
Absolutely
get older,
you can.
you
Yeah.
get more into it. Like
Absolutely.
I have zero interest in horse racing. I bet if I got really rich and in 10 years bought a horse and that horse did well, it'd probably be pretty fun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it'd be like Jim Rome.
Yeah, but how did he get into it? He started making money. He did it, and then it was like, this is sweet. I bet he wasn't a huge horse guy when he was 21.
Yeah.
Now, some guys are. Like, I knew I had a good buddy. I mean, I was my college roommate, Steve Maich, and one of his best friends, like, he was a diehard horse racing fan. And he grew up in Pasadena, knew one of his good friends, a lot of money. They were in the business. So he just got to be around it a little bit. Like, got to the Del Mar, and I think there's nothing like getting an inside look at something when you're young and you become a fan for life,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It's hard if you take a kid and they get to go to a baseball game and that day meet the famous player, or go to a football game, you just get to shake. I bet it happens a lot in the South with the colleges, right? Like if you're in the greater Louisiana area and an LSU player comes, and it just changes the way you think about it for life.
It's as simple as you get invested in the stuff you spend time doing. So if I took somebody who didn't like golf and took them to every PGA event, they might not love golf, but they like it more than they did before we started, I would bet, because they would just understand, like, oh, I know that guy's story. I know that guy's story. I know the deal with him. I know the deal with that person. You spend time doing something, you get invested in it. And I think you start making a lot of money, you're looking for something to, like, how do I have some fun?
I know. What's the point of making all
Better
this
than
money?
this. I can hang out with a bunch of pro golfers and play the same course. They can come to my house and play.
I mean, as Kyle says, none of us are guaranteed to ever make it to a Sunday, so shit, you might as
Right
well.
about that.
They don't follow you. The Wells Fargo doesn't follow the Hearst.
Let's get to a few YouTube comments here, John. A few things that people have been jumping in on over the course. If you're watching this video right now on YouTube, we appreciate it. It's great to have you. If you're newish to us or to our channel, we've got a podcast down there as well, so go check that out. Subscribe to the channel. Just like the video. If you're hanging out right now, just hit the thumbs up. That helps us out, so thank you.
How about Hunter Mahan, 300 today, T9 right now?
You didn't have him on the team?
No, I almost did.
Hunter Mahan was in the YouTube comments the other day.
I know.
Okay.
I think deep down he's a big Niner fan. Can't even hide it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, let's get some YouTube comments, John. How about this one? Chris Biederman. Shout out to my guys. Chris Biederman in the chat. That was early. I don't know if Chris is still here. That was he was one of the first guys on, but one of our favorites, Biederman. Big golfer, Chris Biederman. From what I hear, probably, I don't know if he's 3 bills off the tee, but wouldn't shock me.
He's got some strength.
King of Kings. I would feel awful for Derek Carr if he gets traded, to the Packers. Honestly, I won't. I think he'd be in a pretty good situation if he ended up on the Green Bay Packers. I think they're good. I think their coach is good. I'd be with Devontae. He'd be on the Green Bay Packers. You don't feel bad for people who end up on the Green Bay Packers. You feel bad for people who end up on the Jags. You don't feel bad. Now, it would suck. He's so invested in being a Raider. I get that. And it would suck. It sucks to get traded, right? It's a shot to the ego, all that kind of stuff. But if you end up on the Green Bay Packers, could be worse. Could go pretty. Like if you told me Derek's on the Packers, Aaron's on the Raiders, are you guaranteed that the Raiders win more games than the Packers next year?
No. Now, well, I mean, it would just like it would take Rodgers and Ruggs, and yeah, I mean, it would take. Some
I mean, they
time.
might. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
Jan says, I don't know about YouTube. I'm skeptical. Don't think people will like it. That's sarcasm.
Yeah.
You were talking about investing. Hold on. Let me.
In Dogecoin?
No. In Niners receivers. Share this with you so you can see the comment. Sorry. Seth said, we're talking about investing in receivers. Seth said, don't forget about Dante Pettis in the second round. That's right.
New York Giants starter. A starter would be strong. Actually, he's not a starter. Yeah, member. For how long they went pretty heavily on wide receivers, so they must not look like he's a stalwart moving forward.
Yeah. Jacob says, at least pretend to hear out your franchise quarterback and make them feel like their opinion matters. Good business. if they've earned it. I wouldn't give anybody a false sense of importance, though. Like, I wouldn't call Kyler before my draft.
Yeah. Should they have probably kept Rodgers more in the loop? Yeah. I mean, looking back now, it might have helped.
Like, oh, he's difficult. Okay, well, but he's also great. So do you want to make this easy on yourself or not?
Yeah. Now, one thing I'll be interested to watch this play out, did they just get off to the wrong foot, the two of them? Jerry Krause and Rodgers. Like, did it just get weird? Has it just been weird from the beginning?
Yeah.
Or was really kind of weird, and then the Jordan Love thing was like, okay, I thought you didn't like me, now I don't think you like me. Is there a chance Gutekunst never liked him because he was always kind of big leaguing him, and then Gutekunst is like, well, now this guy's shitty and he's still big leaguing me, I'm going to get rid of him?
Yeah, maybe they weren't really they didn't get along when he was just there.
Yeah.
Ernie says, I find it hard to believe that Jimmy Garoppolo will be the starter because they need to get Trey Lance reps. I don't find it hard to believe. I'd find would it be hard to believe that Jimmy's the starter for 17 games? That would surprise me if that happened.
One thing I saw
based on his injury history.
My guy Nagy was with Coward today, and he said the thing that's going to be key is we have to implement things that Justin did well in Ohio State. We did it with Mahomes when I was there. We tried to go back on film with Michael Vick. And I think, to me, the Niners, I would imagine, are going to implement some Trey Lance concepts into the offense. And I don't necessarily call them for Jimmy, but like they're going to be plays they practice in training camp, right? Just because, especially if the guy's your backup quarterback, you're just going to have to rep it a little bit with like Brandon Ayuk.
Right. There's going to be stuff you want to do. It's fun to do. It's cool to include.
Yeah, but you just want to make it easy for – I mean, you just want to have an easy landing spot for your guy whenever he comes in. Like, it's just – I mean, whether it's first snaps week 1 or week 10, it's going to be hard, right? I bet Patrick Mahomes would be like, yeah, it was pretty
first
fired
snap.
up.
You're saying first snap, like he could just come into a game.
Like, I bet if you asked Patrick Mahomes, like, do you remember that Week 17 game? He'd be like, fuck yeah, it was the first ever NFL start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about your heart. Even it's like, well, this game doesn't mean anything. They're just getting ready for the play. You think it didn't matter for Patrick?
But are you talking about Trey's first start or just his first appearance?
Appearance, sometimes you might just get thrown in. You don't have a chance to think. I think a start, like if he starts a game and there's a buildup that week,
massive.
You know, we hear this. Athletes talk about this and just humans in general about breathing and being right. I can't imagine being a rookie NFL quarterback that was drafted high and just that first start. Like even Herbert just kind of got thrown in.
But this goes back
I think it's a little easier.
This goes back to last year, John, with Herbert and with Tua and with all those guys. There were nobody's in the stands. So it was a hell of a – if you had a rookie quarterback last year, you should have got that guy in the field because it was a unique chance to get on the field before you get the full – it was like starting the kiddie pool.
I'm not going to diminish what Rodgers did because we've seen him be the best player in the league with fans. He did. I'll never forget watching because I was
Saints game
mid-Corona. He was getting guys to jump off sides on the road in New Orleans.
In the red zone, John, in the red zone.
It's just –
red area.
Are you – I mean – it's hard. I mean, it'd be a complete guess. Like, are some guys just going to come back and shit the bed if it's super loud and you can't hear?
Yeah, I just
shit
think,
the bed would be strong.
I think
but just
offensive. I think quarterbacks had advantages last year that they won't have this year. I don't know if it'll, if Justin Herbert going to suddenly look like he doesn't know what to do in front of a crowd. No.
It'd be harder on the road for guys.
This comment from Troy must be for you. Just the beginning of a new Raiders dynasty. My prediction: 12-5, then 13-4. And that's not an Aaron Rodgers comment because he says DC for MVP 2021. If that happens, Gruden will have.
I think if all goes right, and their defense would have to take a dramatic step up.
Okay,
I don't think 10-7 would be an incredible accomplishment for them.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm with you. Dodgers used Kershaw as a pinch hitter last week. I saw that. I think were the bases loaded? I think it was an extra innings. It
was extra innings. Right. You've come around on all the extra innings.
I'm watching an extra inning game like every day right now.
They're sweet.
Jacob said, "Oh wait, where did Jacob?
Don't fight progress. Do not fight progress."
Yeah, I'm not gonna look if I have an opinion and then I see it play out and I go, I don't hate that. I mean, I do conceptually still, but whatever. Let's just make it entertaining. I'm not going to stand to it. I'm not going to stand by it just for the sake of being stubborn. D'Anthony says they got to use use check more in the passing game. The threat of him exists. Do you think he needs to catch more than 20 balls? I mean,
No.
You could argue 2 a game wouldn't be the worst use, but there's just, you see it play out. There's only so many targets for everybody over the course of an NFL game.
Well, the Niners ain't trying to throw it 40 times a game. That's part of the deal.
BK23, did you guys see Lance and Ayuk were working out yesterday together? Yeah. Does anyone know? Are they in Utah?
LA.
Oh, it's
No,
in
they're
LA?
in
Because the
Yeah.
photographer I know I just saw the woman who took the photos is like she does Utah football social stuff.
I think it's in LA. Ayuk's Sacramento kid, right?
Is he?
Yeah, is he from Sac? I thought he went to high school in Sac.
Oh, yeah, Rockland, Sacramento.
Yeah.
Raiders should have
I
less
I
than
almost
9.
said like Trey Lance, Sacramento guy. I'm like, yeah, he's in Minnesota. I'm watching when the draft. I mean, obviously we were on. I think this Banks, the second round guard they drafted, is from El Cerrito.
Yeah, they were pretty fired up for that guy. The Notre Dame guy. I know, that was pretty cool.
My grandparents lived in El Cerrito for a long time. You ever been to El Cerrito?
I've driven through El Cerrito.
Actually,
I have been to El Cerrito once. I helped a neighbor do some remodeling on an apartment. And by remodeling, I mean some.
If you get up in the
labor.
hills, like where Phyllis and Woody lived, it's just very tight, and you're just going around.
Yeah. Is it nice?
Yeah, I mean, old home. I haven't been there.
El Cerrito's like right
years.
on a fault line.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to live there. It's a nice place.
Is it confirmed they were working together or just in the same program? I mean, I don't.
Well, if you were both working out, would you be like, "Hey, you're gonna throw?" Yeah. Well, I'm the Niners quarterback. You're the Niners wide receiver. You want to play catch?
Hey, bro, you look familiar.
I'm Trey Lance.
I'm wearing the Niners shorts. Nice shorts.
Yeah.
Ryan says more catches, Ayuk or Debo. I'm gonna go Ayuk.
Yeah, same.
You going Ayuk as well?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if Debo's like 100 catch. Like Ayuk could have like 100 catch seasons. To me, Debo is. I don't want to call him like he's not gimmicky or gadgety, but he can't be a number 1 wide receiver. To me, Ayuk maybe could. I'm not saying he will, but I do think the speed and ability to get open, like I think Ayuk could be really good.
Yeah.
If I had to say one of them makes a Pro Bowl the next 3 or 4 years, it'd be Ayuk over Debo.
And keep in mind, drafted in we're talking about the first round receiver versus second round receiver.
I think not overdraft, but like he was a guy. I remember when we broke him down, like you just look back, he'd been injured a lot at South Carolina. Really, his senior season was like his first healthy season, and then he's just battled in. He's just a guy that gets injured a lot.
Did you guys see the Schefter clip on Pat McAfee show about how the Rodgers Packers story broke? No, I did not see that. Did you see that?
But it kind of went viral today. I just saw he was trending on Twitter that it was basically saying that like it was accumulation of things, and it wasn't like because a lot of people are acting like the Rodgers camp was forcing them all to put it out, and he was just adamant it was not that. It was just story after story after story, and he just threw it out there. That might not be the best description because I have not watched the clip. But I clicked on him because he was trending on Twitter, and that was like a breakdown I saw.
Gotcha.
When I was coming back from the gym today, McAfee was talking about Schefter going viral about talking to them. He's like, God, he's giving you inside the curtain. ESPN's going to be pissed. Yeah.
I
think Schefter's point was more, this is not just like one person's like leaked this. It was like, bro, I've been hearing this for a while. Like
gotcha.
they got basically like they got problems. That's where I do think back to the Rodgers thing. This is very, very real. His hatred, right? And it's not like Deshaun, are they going to trade him or not? And that's like this is Rodgers versus the Packers. Like Deshaun maybe got traded, maybe wouldn't, who knows? This is going to get ugly. He's just way more famous. The Packers are a way bigger brand. They're just, what a powerhouse. Like this thing is not going away. Because if we just wake up one day and it's like Aaron Rodgers has been traded, it's one of the biggest trades. Because I saw someone's like, this is what's pissing me off. He's just following Brady's blueprint. Brady left as a free agent. Brady was told no by certain teams. Rodgers is signed an extension 2 years. He's trying to fucking find his way out, which is whatever. I don't care. But Brady didn't do this at all. If anything, Brady kept quiet.
Yeah, it's to me what makes it always feels shocking when this happens, but it's happened plenty of times before. It's just usually more the team's choice, right? Joe Montana, Tom Brady. It's more the team's choice than it is Favre than it is the aging star quarterback's choice. And it's what the Packers wanted to do. Of course they did. That's what everybody eventually does is they replace you. And he knew it. But then he was an MVP.
The Steelers desperately wanted to do it with Ben, and they're like, we can't land anyone else. They're just like, come back.
Yeah, and then it's like it turns out he's what happens to is he'll be better than you think for half a year, and then his arm goes, and it's just he can't get the ball 15 yards down the field. It's like, oh, wait, we thought it was better this year. I thought he was going to be better last year.
Rodgers is the rare guy that it was clear he was going to get kicked to the curb. And it happened, like you said, it happens to literally every player in the league, unless they just retire. Especially at an older age, and he just flipped the script, did a 5-year throwback season. It was like, we got a problem, but it's a good problem to have.
Fine. It's like, all right, you're just here longer.
Yeah,
it's like, nope, I want out.
Gotcha, I'm out.
I just had a spite MVP. It's the first spite MVP in the history of the league.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
All right. Well, on that note, don't forget, hit us with mailbag questions. We'll have the weekend mailbag out, so that means another stream on Friday. Subscribe to this channel. Like. Hit the like button, guys. We appreciate it, and gals. Rock your promo code ham hats, all that.
You know what I'd love is an updated picture, the GIF of Jeter's nephew. Mm-hmm. That kid's probably got to be 15 now, right? Maybe not 15. Yeah. How long?
No, it might.
7, 8 years ago? Yeah. I mean, he was probably 8, 9. 12. I mean, he could easily be 14,
I don't think he was
15.
8. Wasn't he 5?
5?
Yeah. That was pretty young.
5. So 8 years. He could be junior high. What does he look like now?
Floyd Mayweather and Jake Paul get in a brawl because Jake snatched his hat. Did they just do a?
No, they couldn't have because the fight just got announced. I mean, they're not weighing in yet or anything. Maybe they're doing promotional stuff. I will. I 100% will order that fight. I'll promise you that. When
is that? Do we know? Do we have a date on that? Do you know off the top of your head?
I would guess summary. May 6th right now. I'm going to make an educated guess.
Oh yeah,
early August.
TMZ, John, 23 minutes ago.
You watching the video?
Hold on. Let me see if I can. I'll get it right here for everybody. Hold on. Stand by. We can't really hear it, but apparently, this was. Somebody said, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you."
He snatched his hat and ran away. That was pretty good.
Hold on. Let me go back.
Are they at the? Is that Miami?
Yeah, it is.
That's the Hard Rock Stadium, right? Where the Niners lost Super Bowl.
Why are they there?
Probably promotion. That's pretty good.
What else happens here? Anything else happen?
I saw Canelo is fighting someone
down a hallway. Yeah.
That story was he called the guy a fucking pussy after they screamed at each other. But I think they're fighting this weekend, and so they're staying at the same hotel, in the camps. And one of the dudes, whoever Canelo's fighting, said something to Canelo as he was walking away, and Canelo turned around to his camp guy and just called him the biggest pussy he'd ever seen. It's weird because Canelo, kind of like Floyd, some of these they're just small. Canelo is not a heavyweight. Canelo's in the 140s, 150, 160 range. Floyd's tiny. Jake Paul. This is what I was telling you before we jumped on. If Jake Paul was Floyd Mayweather or Canelo, a legit boxer, and maybe he becomes one, they would never fight each other, guys.
Yeah, look at this.
Part of boxing is weight classes, right? It's not like football. Hey, you made tight end, you got to end up blocking Myles Garrett. You're well, I'm more of a receiving tight end. It's in boxing, you match people up that are the same. Jake Paul weighs 190 pounds. Floyd's fights in the 140s, 150s. They would never fight. Honestly, it's not really fair. Now, I think Floyd would tell you, I'm one of the best fighters ever. I would kick his fucking ass. I don't think it's crazy. I think Jake Paul could beat him. Now, because I told you that, you thought I was crazy.
That Jake Paul could beat Mayweather?
Yeah, do you think that's possible? He might not be able to catch him, but the ring, it's not like the ring's relatively small. He can't just. He's old. I mean,
yeah, he
Floyd's
is old. And the size difference is probably more significant than I realized.
Well, because Jake is like legitimately 6'1", 1. Jake is well put together. Floyd's 5'8", 150. Now, he's historically like the fastest guy ever. But he's 44 years old. Now, Floyd is not, say what you want about him, bad guy, asshole, whatever. He's always been known for being like the ultimate grinder, like big time trainer.
Right.
Even if you watches those HBO lead ups, I mean, his training he's a nut job trainer. Did you watch? I'd forgot just because I Googled him. He fought, what's his name? Connor. Connor's big, but I think Conor McGregor, my guess is 175 pounds. Conor McGregor, no, Conor's 155 pounds. Jake Paul is way bigger than these guys.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. The fight apparently is going to be there.
I bet Jake Paul's going to be a massive underdog.
June 6th.
That's pretty soon.
Floyd told Logan Paul he'd fight both Logan and Jake Paul on the same night. Okay, is that what you were saying earlier? I didn't catch that.
What I can imagine from Floyd's perspective, how can he take Jake Paul seriously, right? Until he catches. I saw Rogan say this. Rogan's like, I've been watching fighting for 20 years. And you can say what you want about him, but when you watch a guy punch, if you're used to watching punching like a scout is used to watching football, like he punches like a boxer. And his power that he's knocking these guys out with, the injured MMA fighter and Nate Robinson, like he's knocking them out with a legit power, punch. Like they're not taking a dive. Like he's hitting them and he's knocking them out because you just look at him like Jake Paul is well put together, right? He's not like some flabby athlete. Like he's a legitimate looking athlete. Now Floyd, I don't know. I feel like if Jay catches him, it's going to hurt.
I'm going to have to actually watch. I've not watched.
I bet Floyd would tell you, like, you don't think my punches hurt? Like, he probably do, right?
I have not watched either one of these lead-ups. I might have to watch this one.
That's a pretty quick turnaround, right? Floyd probably just say, I'm in shape 24/7, 365. I just
quick
stay
turnaround
ready.
From what?
Well, like, they just announced it a week or two ago, and they're fighting in a month.
Oh.
Like, it's not like Floyd needs 2 months to get ready. Is Floyd taking this thing seriously? I saw one quote I saw that makes me a little nervous about Floyd. He's like, wait, I get to fight a YouTuber for $100 million? You don't think I'm in?
Well, I mean, it does make you think he's not taking it seriously, though.
But Floyd fought Connor for what? Remember, they got like $500 million. Remember, he had 3 fights. Floyd's last 3 fights, the third was McGregor and then 2 other random guys. He had made almost $1 billion. Floyd makes a lot of money in his fights.
Would you start taking him less seriously?
No, I mean he's 40. I don't.
Not him. If you were him, would you start taking the fights less seriously? You're making $50 million from a fight.
Well, but
and they're all money grabs. You're not fighting. It's not for any crown anymore, right?
As just a guy that likes entertaining stuff, Floyd is not very entertaining to watch because he dances around.
Is boxing entertaining anymore?
Do you remember being in college when Floyd fought Oscar De La Hoya? That was really big.
I do
remember
that.
We bought it, and it was a terrible fight because Oscar was older, and Floyd is just boring. Like whatever Mahomes and like Steph Curry, and even the dude that died, a month ago, was it I almost said Merle Haggard, but the fighter, remember the guy that died, like the famous the fight that Barry Tompkins called? Hagler Hearns.
Oh yeah.
And you just watch it and like they call it like the greatest round ever, and they just come out and just boom, 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 boom. Like I've seen Floyd land like 3 punches just because he hits you and then he dances around. It's like, Floyd, I mean, fuck. Everyone's been blowing you my entire life as the greatest pound for pound fighter ever. You don't even really punch. He'd be like, well,
I remember the De La Hoya fight. I was traveling with like the Arena 2 football team, the Central Valley Coyotes, and everybody went to like some small town version of like a Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the fight. It was a big deal. And it was really one of those, the whole bar was just like, what are we watching right now? This sucks.
It was terrible.
People just screaming at the projector screen.
He's done that twice, I'd say, in our adult life. Pacquiao and Oscar, and I thought they both sucked. I remember watching Manny was done by that point in time. I heard someone, I'm going to end it my last take of the day. I heard Chris Mannix say this. He said one fucking fatal flaw that it happened in boxing over, like, in our generation, no one ever wanted to lose. And he's like, part of sports, the theater in it, like in basketball, in football, in I think MMA's, in golf, are devastating losses. That adds to your legend. He's like, you go back and look at Muhammad Ali, he lost. People act like losing, that makes you actually a bigger star. But like in Floyd's generation, no one ever wanted to lose. So they just avoid. Look at MMA, and Mannix's point was like MMA, a loss to Chuck Liddell or to Tito Ortiz or Conor McGregor is never the worst thing. It actually just builds up the sport more. It makes the drama higher. But Floyd, who by far set the financial model for all these guys, you never want to lose. It's like Floyd, and I don't think he ever technically lost. But it's like you haven't had a memorable fight in your career.
Well, by the way, James says his brother fought Nate. They're getting the Jake brother mixed up. Oh, I'll get back to that. I just wanted to address that. They get the Jake brother mixed up. I can't even keep track of which one's who. Nate. Logan fought Nate.
Jake is the... I thought Jake is the fighter, Logan. Now
maybe Logan fought Nate. I don't know.
The same guy fought them both.
Whatever. To me, it's the problem that college football has to address. Like, guys, you're Alabama. You can't play 3 games against Howard University, right? Like, college football has a ratings. The national championship game has become the same teams playing every year, and no one's concerned in your non-conference that you're going to lose. And in your conference, they know, well, the SEC is viewed in such a way that even if you do lose a game, you'll probably be okay. Now, college basketball has kind of addressed it. They've started to have teams like you get rewarded for scheduling difficult games. College football.
I think Gonzaga's done a good job of that.
College football's done a little bit of a better job, like all the big neutral site games. And now you're seeing more home and home type games. Oregon's going to play Ohio State this year, but
you should almost be mandatory. You play 2 Power 5 non-conference games,
or make them all 3. Like, the benefit of expanding the playoff to 8 teams is that you don't have to feel like you got to go unbeaten. So, it's a great perspective from Mannix. I think there's a lot of truth to it, because part of the great stories, think about the great stories, is you overcoming adversity, knocking everybody out. It's the same reason the PGL, you and I were talking about golf earlier. Like, you couldn't just pay Bryson DeChambeau $50 million to come beat up on the European Tour. There'd be no threat of losing. No one would. It's not interesting. The threat of losing, it's why sports, the original fights where these were things to the death, or like some guy against a lion, like the ultimate. We're not asking for that, right? The ultimate, but. It's why some guy walks across a string over the Grand Canyon. It's enthralling because there's a real threat. Like, there has to be a threat. The joy of victory, the agony of defeat is the famous line. The victory is made sweeter by the fact that you might have lost.
For as great as Mahomes' career has been, his triumph being a Super Bowl champion, he's had 2 devastating losses, right? The AFC Championship game to Brady and Bill at home, and then this year in the Super Bowl. Like, losing, is Conor McGregor lost? Yeah, who cares? Okay, I gotta go.
Wisconsin versus Notre Dame at Wrigley. Is that this year?
That's a good game.
All right, everybody. On that note, thanks for hanging out with us on the stream. Later.